The United States is the third most populous nation in the world, ranking behind China and India. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's population clock, the estimated 2008 United States population is about 327 million, with about 80% white people. The distribution of the population in the U.S. is rather uneven. The Northeast is the most populated region, with about half of the American population. The Great Plains have a relatively small population. The South and the West are not populous, but these two parts have the fastest growing cities in the United States. Among the top 15 cities with the greatest population gains between 2017 and 2018, 8 were in the South, 6 were in the West, and 1 in the Midwest. Mobility is considered to be one of the characteristics of the American people. It is said that the American people are always on the move, from one part of the country to another, from one city to another, from farm to city, from city to suburbs. 1 in 5 Americans moves to a new home every year to seek new job opportunities, a better climate, or some other goals. According to American historians and experts in demography, there are 4 great movements in history of the United States. The first was between the end of the Civil War and 1880, when the westward movement came to an end. The flow of the population was from the East Coast to the West. The second was between 1890 and 1920, a period when the United States realized its industrialization and urbanization. The movement was from the rural areas to the cities. The third was from 1920 to 1960, with the 1940s, the war years, as the peak. In this period, the population flow is from the Northeast and the Central North to the West and the South, the Sunbelt areas. The fourth occurred more or less at the same time with the third movement. The fourth trend brought a number of serious consequences to big cities, namely the rising unemployment rate, the increase of population beneath the poverty line, the worsening of living conditions, and the fall of government income. The United States is a nation of immigrants. No other countries have as many varied racial and ethnic groups as America. America is not only a nation, but a nation of nations. The first people on the American continent came from Asia as early as 12,000 years ago. They were called Indians. The westward movement marked the destruction of the Native Americans. The majority of American people are descendants of the European immigrants. The first European immigrants to America came from England by Mayflower in 1620. The following sharp increase in immigrants took place in the 1830s and the 1840s. It brought Northern Europeans and Irish craftsmen. In 1890s, Another tide of immigration appeared, this time largely from Southern and Eastern Europe. This period, the United States was changing from a mainly agricultural society to an industrial country. From 16th century through 19th century, about 12 million people came to America from African countries as slaves. Today, about 13% of America's population is Black. In the 19th century, laws limited Asian immigrants. Asians in the United States met with widespread discrimination. Things changed in 1965. The Immigration and Nationality Act amendments gave an equal chance to all foreigners seeking entry to the USA. In the 1980s, almost half of all immigrants were Asians. There are so many racial and ethnic minorities in America that so many questions whether minority is an appropriate term to describe people of color in the United States. Let's take a look at the unique features of some racial and ethnic minorities in America. The Hispanic American population is among the fastest growing in the United States. They made up more than 17% of the U.S. population. By 2050, Hispanics are supposed to make up 30% of the population. As the Hispanic community expands, Latinos are making headway in areas such as business. While Latinos are advancing as business, they face challenges in the educational attainment and suffer from a higher poverty rate than the general population. For years, African Americans were the nation's largest minority group. Today, Latinos have outpaced Blacks in population growth. But African Americans continue to play an important role in the U.S. culture. Census data helps to clear up some of the long-standing negative impression about Blacks. For example, Black businesses are booming. Blacks have a long tradition of military service. Moreover, African Americans graduated from high school at about the same rate as the whites do. The census data reveals that African Americans have relocated to the South in such large numbers that most Blacks in the country now live where their ancestors were enslaved. Asian Americans make up more than 5% of the population. Although this is a small part of the overall American population, Asian Americans is one of the fastest growing groups in the country. The Asian Americans population is a diverse one. Most Asian Americans are Chinese origin, followed by Filipino, Indian, Vietnamese, Korean, and Japanese. Considered as a whole, Asian Americans stand out as a minority group in educational attainment and in social and economic status. Among them, the Chinese Americans have proved to be more industrious, intelligent, and doing fine today. Thanks to movies such as last of the Mohicans, there's the idea that Native Americans no longer exist in the United States. In history, they had been killing for almost a century. Today, the American Indian population isn't large. There are about 2.9 million Native Americans in the United States. Nearly half of these Native Americans identify as multiracial. Like other minorities, they are melting into the nation. Poverty and unemployment are the major problems for them, especially on the reservations. The United States is often called a melting pot, where various racial and ethnic groups are assimilated into the American culture. However, it has been more recently called salad bowl, which means that immigrants of different backgrounds mixed harmoniously, but at the same time keep their unique culture and customs. See you